Hello and welcome to Auto Shenanigans. How the devil are you? Have you had a good week? My name is John. Thank you very much for joining me for another exciting episode of Secrets of the Motorway. This week I'm in Lancashire, home of the Lancashire Hot Pot, Jelly Babies, and it's also home to the first KFC that opened in 1965. Delicious, but not quite as delicious as the Bury Easterly Bypass, also known as the M66. The M66 is found just north of Manchester and it runs past the east side of Bury, hence the name. It comes in at 8 miles long and there are a total of 4 junctions. The M66 was built in reverse, with the first section constructed in 1973 running from junctions 4 to 3. Work would then start immediately after on the remaining section and that would be completed by 1978. Originally, the plan was for the M66 to run round the east side of Manchester and link up with the A6M, a road that was never really built, and also link up with the M63, which was built but now makes up part of the M60 motorway following a renumbering scheme and bodge job to create the M60 motorway in the late 90s. That's a story for another episode. The M66 then, it starts in Edenfield and straight away there's a problem. You can't join the motorway here. According to a map, the M66 starts at an interchange with the A56 where seemingly we're missing a set of slip roads. The result of this is that you can't actually join the motorway at its starting point. Your options are to do a 4-mile round trip to the north or to head south to Junction 1, which is 2.5 miles from here. No rush though. Right next door to the M66 start point, hiding in the trees, is this abandoned mill which opened in 1801. It used to produce cotton before moving into cotton dyeing and finishing and then finally ending up as a print works in the 1960s. The site closed in 2001. Since then it's been sat abandoned and unused. Nature is taking over and the buildings are completely dilapidated. However, there are plans underway to potentially convert the site into 25 luxury flats. As you head south on the M66, have a look out to your right and on the horizon you might spot a tower that overlooks the landscape. It's a few miles from the motorway, but you can't miss it. The tower sits on Holcombe Hill, which is a few hundred metres above sea level. The tower itself is 128 feet high and was built in 1852 as a tribute to Robert Peel, who was twice Prime Minister of the UK. He was perhaps most well known for his involvement in setting up the Metropolitan Police in 1829, which is why sometimes police officers are referred to as Bobbies, because they're named after Robert Peel. Robert, Bob, Bobbies. Get it? Moving on, and Junction 1 of the M66, finally we're actually able to join the motorway if we so wish. But only when heading south. It seems that this junction is also incomplete, and I don't really know why. I imagine it's something to do with managing traffic flow across the area. In any case, it makes for quite an odd junction design here. Just before we arrive at Junction 2, we pass through Freetown, a suburb of Bury. Freetown started as a post-war town that was built to a good standard with a large tree-lined green space down the middle. The space was left intentionally so that a bypass or larger road might be added at a later stage. Instead, they got the M66, dividing the town quite literally in half. With large sound barrier walls installed on either side of the carriageway, if you lived in Freetown, the view might be described as suboptimal. Just after you pass Junction 2, you'll drive under a bridge upon which is a railway. It's the classic story of what was once a busy industrial railway hampered by beaching in the 1960s and then taken on by a preservation society and reopened as a heritage railway line. It would be 1987 that the East Lancashire Railway Preservation Society would run passenger services again 15 years after the last train ran down the line. Follow the railway along for a short distance and we find this, the Roch Viaduct. It was constructed in 1862 and it carries the railway across the River Roch, a 100-mile river that starts just south of Todmorden in the Pennines, through Rochdale and past Bury before dumping its load in the River Irwell at Radcliffe. Junction 3 is known locally as Asda Junction. There's an Asda. Interestingly, Junction 3 didn't open until 1981. Indeed, the motorway was completed in 1978 and you were able to drive through Junction 3. But for some reason, it took a few more years before you could use the junction as intended. Up next is Junction 4 and the end of the M66 already. But don't worry, there's much to discuss. Junction 4 is also known as Simister Island and it's where the M60, the M66 and the M62 all meet. You might notice whilst driving down the M66 that it just becomes the M60 and continues along. At one point the M66 did continue here to another junction where it would have met the A576. The reason it changed goes back to that M60 bodge job of the late 90s. In short, the M60 was mostly pieced together using existing roads and they used a section of the M66, renumbering it as the M60. With that in mind, the original idea for Simister Island was actually quite different and they planned to build a junction that looked a little bit more like this. The free-flowing slip roads were never built, but they did leave space for them. If you look to the south of Simister Island, you'll notice an unusually wide central reservation and this is where space was left for the free-flowing slip roads to be added. And there we are then guys, that's all we've got time for this week. I hope you liked the video. If you did, there's a button specifically specifically for that. And if you haven't subscribed already, please consider doing so. That would be wicked sweet awesome. Enjoy the rest of your week, whatever it is you get up to. My name's John, you've been watching Auto Shenanigans, and I'll see you guys next time for another exciting episode of Secrets of the Motorway. Until then, take care, bye bye.